So, hello everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Pursuit of the Podium podcast. Here we're really trying to understand how can we get to that top step of the podium through interviews, through riders like Ben Chilton, who I'm with today, and then also in the future with other sorts of up and coming pros looking to then make the step up to the highest level of the sport, as well as other people who maybe are helping these riders to then get to the highest level. So, coaches, people giving nutrition advice, mechanics, that sort of thing. So Ben's our first guest on this podcast. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm all good. Glad to be home for a bit.
Yeah, so this year you've sort of made the step up to Division 2 level French racing, and correct me if I'm totally butchering your team name. It's Apogé Charente-Maritime. Is that about right?
All right, yeah.
Nice.
I can do much better.
And so sort of how have you found that kind of first year living in France, really?
uh, it's a pretty big step. Like
Yep.
it's first time moving away from home for a long period of time,
Yep.
and I'm just going out with a mate. So it's like when you're out there, my French isn't great, and the support isn't huge. So it's just you and your mate versus the world, or versus every French rider going. So.
Brilliant. Yeah, that sounds great. And so really to kind of start from the beginning and to really give people back the story of sort of how you've got up to this, racing internationally, you're racing in France, you're winning races as well, which we'll come on to in a little bit. I've got some nice stats here from Pro Cycling Stats saying you've got over 15 top tens this season with at least 3 wins, which is pretty incredible in that first year as a pro. So sort of, how do you get into cycling really?
My parents were rode at university, and then we were brought up with bikes. So there's a picture on a fridge with me, like age 3, riding a tricycle around the garden. And then I remember my first time riding, like in the local park, without stabilizers, and I was like, ah. So I just sort of grew up around bikes, and then joined my local club, and sort of started racing. Like got first off into cyclocross, and then sort of always raced cyclocross, and then started racing the mountain bike in the summer, and sort of moved up through the ranks of the mountain bike, and but found the sort of found the limit, or I felt I could go no further, and so changed over to the road completely, and then moved out of France. It's sort of one step at a time, just sort of moving up slowly but surely.
Yeah, absolutely. So sort of you started by riding at Derby Mercury, which you actually stayed at
Yeah.
for quite a long time, bear in mind how high of a level you were racing at, moving
Yeah.
sort of from there to CX Syndicate. But really to
Yeah.
start talking about Derby Mercury, so you were racing for GB while still riding for Derby. And do you think
Yes.
was there sort of a culture in Derby Mercury that was able to nurture sort of talent and high level racing, or kind of was
Yeah.
it
There was when I was racing, there was a huge group of us all racing at quite high level in Derby Mercury. So like it was one of the biggest clubs in Derby at the time. So it was like every week on a Wednesday night you could go down and you could race like national level riders. We're all just like in the local community, and then we're all pushing each other, and and sort of yeah, I didn't see a need to make the step up to something different. It worked well. It was very local, and I do all the riders. So for me, up until what was that? Must have been junior. I was still racing with them, and then yeah, it sort of started to die out after junior, as everyone does. Sort of drop out after you're at school now, or you've gone to sixth form, and bikes aren't what you want to do anymore. So they sort of started getting smaller, and then the syndicate opportunity arose with Bruce Dalton. So jumped at that, and yeah, sort of the end of the Derby Mercury, which was like a pretty big part of like my development. Like started that was my first club, and I was on it. Yeah, as you said, it must have been 6 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And working with the coaches there, and because we used to get access to the Derby Velodrome, so and yeah, training every Wednesday. So it was like a lot of progression, all in this one club, until I found that I was at the point where I needed to move up to something a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I think that's very common sort of with a lot of youth riders who what's nice is that you stayed in the same club and there's you hadn't needed to go anywhere else. So for me, I started in Nottingham Clarion and then moved into a few sort of development teams, and from there, which then kind of gave me access to these resources and mentors and those sorts of things. But what's nice is that you've got Derby Mercury, which has then been able to have all of that culture and those friends as well you're able to race with, which is really good. And then
Yeah.
sort of that move to CX Syndicate, was that a big step up? And sort of when you then move from like your club to a team which is then moving to be a little bit more professional, maybe it's just a little bit more serious. How did you find that? And sort of what would you recommend to somebody who's maybe considering that move?
Um, I think for me it was a good move with sort of well, it was more support or promised more support. So like it was a time where I wasn't having to pay for bikes, and like there was a mechanic
Mm.
who could help if I needed it. But like the main bit was also there was also Ian Field and Beth Crompton and Bruce Dalton on this team with so I'm more looking past bikes and kit and more looking at like Ian's like ex-national champ, raced at World Cups, like was one of the best in the UK, and racing for top tens at World Cups. So like the experience level was huge. And Bruce, well, he knows just about everybody. And then Beth, who's now like she's now heavily involved in the RSRs and sort of a British cycling coach, and she's also been pro on the cyclocross scene and pro with story racing. So like she also knows what she's doing. So it was more of a slightly maybe I was young and I was like, oh yeah, we get free bikes and free stuff, but also like the people who I was on the team with helped me develop a lot, and then from that I got quite a lot of help from Beth with coaching. So like, and then a really good contacts with Bruce as well. So like, I think yes, when you're young, you're always going to want that. Oh, it's a new bike, but also you look past that and see, wow, these guys know what they're doing, and you got to think of the bigger picture rather than just kit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's you hit the nail on the head there, really. So, as those key mentors, they've been there, they've done that. Everyone from Bruce to Ian to Beth as well. They've all raced in Belgium at the highest level of the sport, as you were then going to do in the future, which then led you on to a win at Gravesend, sort of a couple of years down the line. And so, was there anything key that they taught you as sort of mentors within that team, or was it more just the team atmosphere that really helped develop you there?
I think probably the team atmosphere, but I guess that was all created by the riders. So
Mm.
like there's a yeah the just sort of going to races with them. Like I remember Westmoreland I did with them, and like all of a sudden it's like well probably not up to the pro standards now, but like they were like properly on it. Saying that we were a very a 4-person British team, like I thought it was pretty professional for sort of probably not a lot of budget,
Mm.
and there's only 4 of us there, and also Bruce's racing, but also team managing, so a fair bit on his plate, and it still turned out to be yeah, there's got a team van and there's a mechanic, and like there's a lot less you have to worry about, and you're like very much more focused on your performance as a rider. So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's absolutely it, really. And then sort of, were you still at school when you were racing for
yeah,
certificate? And then
yeah,
once you must have finished school kind of 2019, 2020-ish, is that right?
yeah. So I think I had 1 year with them, and then that moved on. That evolved into Spectra Racing,
Mm.
and then I had another year with Spectra Racing where I was still at school. So I remember, I think the first year I did tour series, like on the morning of a tour series, I got my A level results, and or got A level results and into university. So
So that's really interesting. So then, well, firstly, did that alter the way that you race? Was that a good thing? Was that a bad thing? Obviously, there must have been a lot of riders within.
oh, I don't really, I don't think it did.
You just kind of brushed it off, and
Uh,
they're like,
it was like,
it is what it is.
it's done now. It's done now. We'll move on.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And then how do you, obviously, a lot of people, when you leave sixth form, you're then considering your sort of universities or maybe a gap year or something like that.
Yeah.
How did you make the decision to sort of focus on bike riding for now? And was that an easy thing to do? And what would you recommend sort of giving yourself advice from now on to when you were back at that age? What would you say to yourself?
Well, I I thought it was an okay decision, at least for the first gap year. Like it's I was burnt out from I was so before going to sixth form, I was tempted not to, like I was gonna go into an apprenticeship or go to college. I wasn't fully keen on going to sixth form. And so by the time I was finished sixth form, I was pretty burnt out with education. So I was like, I think I'd want to have a year out anyway, just so that when I go to university, I'm like, I really want to do this. Like sort of get a bit of yeah, a bit of motivation back, I guess. So I think the first year was easy. It was the second year to say, I'm not going to do this again. Like I'm not going to uni again. And but like the way I looked at it is like the sport's only getting younger. And yes, I could do 4 years 4 years at uni. And if I'm going to uni, I was going to go and do mechanical engineering. So not the easiest of not the not the easiest of courses to do. And I thought if I was going to do that, I'd have to put cycling would be put on a back foot. So when I come out at 22, I've got some catching up to do. And what Pogacar had already won his first Grand Tour before he was 22. So I was like, if there's any time to give cycling a shot, it's going to be before uni, not after. Which well, but saying that, there are a few people who entered the sport later. I just felt like it was the right thing to give it a go now, as you can go back to uni whenever, really. It's not a time frame for it.
Yeah, totally. I think sort of, so I did a gap year before I went to university, which was sort of 2019 to 2020 season, which I really, really enjoyed, and somehow managed to nail that down really well with then going into the COVID lockdowns. And we actually spent a lot of time riding together in the COVID lockdowns.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think sort of I found that then the decision to then go into university, which is what I've just done, in 2020 was I was weighing up sort of, well, do I want to pursue this a little bit further? But then obviously, at this time it was all lockdown and stuff like that, which was a bit of a spanner into the works for myself. But I found that certainly, doing a gap year was basically a non-negotiable for me once I'd finished A levels, like yourself, really. And actually, I found that I grew up quite a lot. So having that chance to just kind of get a first taste of living in Belgium. So I lived in Belgium for about 2 or 3 months ish over the season. And actually that kind of a first taste of living on your own in another country was really useful for me, just in terms of just actual development for myself. And so I think actually sort of if there's somebody who's considering that sort of thing, something that I don't think a lot of people will say, which is actually, going to university maybe a year or so on older can actually be really beneficial. And certainly I found that when I was basically in lockdown, I was like, I'm really bored and I just want to do open university courses on stuff that's science related, because that's what I did. I'm doing microbiology. And I was just like, yeah, I'm bored. I just want to go to university now because I need stuff to do, basically. But yeah, I think certainly if somebody's considering that, then that would be something to think about that I don't think is often very talked about, really. But yeah, sort of then moving on to lockdown 2020. Do you think that helped your development as a bike rider because you're able to focus a lot more?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I think I guess I missed racing, but also I was still at school, so I was doing A levels in lockdown, and when we came out of lockdown, the racing was back on. So, and that perfectly coincided with me, like me finishing school and COVID lockdown was like quite a similar time. So it was sort of, or maybe a year or two after, but yeah, it was sort of, yeah, it gave me a bit more time to train, but I don't know if it heavily impacted my development. I think I'd still be here even if I didn't have COVID.
And then sort of moving on to sort of 2022, obviously the elephant is the room is that you had a massive knee injury in Namur.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain how that happened, or we can just move over it?
No, so that was it was the first. I'd planned to go out to Belgium for 2 months or something like that with Zan Kreese, who was also on Spectre at the time, and staying with a local Belgian and racing all the races. So I'd had a decent start to the season, and then I think I had maybe I had a good result somewhere. I was like, oh, we should go out. So we planned all this. A good result in the UK, and then I was like, oh, we're gonna go out. That was it. I won at Falkirk Nationals and went into the green jersey, and then less than a week later, I was going out to Belgium, and so I did. We got out there, and the first weekend we did the Rue de Vorde, which was like trying to find my legs, and we realised you get your head kicked in every single race out here, like consistently. No matter how well you're going, there's going to be someone going twice as fast. And so I was trying to justify sort of the investment in coming out. And so the weekend later, after Rue de Vorde, I was doing Namur with GB, and it was European champs. And I had a good run into it, and like I was feeling pretty happy on the course because it was mega techy, and I could like make up time because I was riding stuff that no one else was. And so we got to the race. I was, hopefully this is going to go well. And I think I had a pretty good start. I was slowly working way up. I think I saw maybe 14th or something like that. And then it got halfway through, and there's a big, pretty technical descent down onto the cobbles. And after I had quite a few people starting to overtake me, so I was like, shit, I need to put my foot down here and work out why I'm going backwards so fast. So maybe I took a little bit too much risk and rode it. I rode the descent perfectly, but got to the bottom with twice as much speed as I've ever had before, and trying to turn on these wet cobbles, just sort of slipped out, landed on my left knee, and sort of dead stop on my left knee. I was like, this hurts quite a lot, actually. Okay. Oh, what? Get up, Ben. Come on, get up. It's only, it's just a dead leg. It's just a dead leg. Right, so I get on and I continue riding. So I ride up the cobbles, across the sketchy bank, do the run up, and then work out I can't walk at all. I can't walk. I can't pedal. I can't put any weight on it. So okay, yeah, something's wrong here. Something's wrong. So I get off the course and I walk back to the pits. So I'm still like, oh, maybe it's just a dead leg or something's not right, but it's all right. It's all right. I can walk on it. I can sort of get around on it. So I go and sit down and go and find the GB boys in the pits and sit down there and say, oh, something's up with my knee. So okay. Well, just ride back to the tent. Yeah. And then I go back to the tent. I was like, no, I need to go to the medical and work out what the hell's going on here. So I get to the medical, and the medical guys check me out, and they're like, "Oh, you can still bend. It's not too bad. Like if it's not swollen that much. There's no break in the skin." I says, "Oh, okay. Oh yeah, you've just bruised it, mate. You've just bruised it. Here you go. Have some painkillers." Right. So they tell me you're completely fine. Just man up and get on with it, and then they take you back in a buggy to the CB camp. Later on that evening, we go to hospital because I can't move at all anymore. And then there were an X-ray, which I nearly pass out on the X-ray table. That's how much it's starting to hurt. And then they come back as, oh yeah, you've broken your kneecap, you've fractured your kneecap. So I had two people say, no, you're completely fine. And then the third person said, no, you've fractured your kneecap. Yeah, you're going to be, yeah, you're going to be off the bike for a while. Here's a set of crutches. And then the 600 quid bill that comes through the post a week or two later.
And the 600 quid bill as well. So
yeah, because it's a Euro hospital and everything.
So you smashed your kneecap.
Yeah.
Then rode for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, you ride down to so you ride for what, maybe 15 minutes with a broken kneecap?
Yeah.
And you talk about resilience.
or just dumb. Like, what? This doesn't hurt, it's fine.
The whole adrenaline rush. That is pretty insane.
Yeah. So I couldn't walk for 2 months afterwards.
And that's a massive challenge. As somebody who's invested a lot into cycling and invested a lot into training, and you've got years worth of development before that, how did you sort of overcome that challenge to then the year after that then get up to winning national cyclocross races and French level races to then get yourself a podium? Was there somebody that you worked with through that? Were there mentors?
No, it's just just me, my mom, my dad, and my brother. Just like the dream team. Just sort of, yeah. I don't know how I made it through 2 months off the bike. Like, I can't remember it. They say like your brain just blocks out the pain. I think I was just in so much pain for those 2 months. My brain's just completely lost those 2 months.
That's quite incredible.
I couldn't. From when I crashed, I spent another week in Belgium trying to work out how I was going to get home, because Zan wanted to stay out and race because she was on form, but I was like, I can't stay out here. Like, I'm going to mentally crack. So I was like, I need to work out a way of getting my van home, but also leaving Zan with some way of getting home as well. So there was loads of logistics there. But then after that, when I got home, I can't remember what I did with those 2 months. Like, and then it was coming around to Christmas, and I'd started walking again, and then I knelt down on my knee again, and like damaged it again. So I was back off. I was like off the bike and not walking again for another 2 weeks.
Oh, dear.
And then the entry date for national champs was coming around. So I think that might have been around Christmas, maybe. And I was unsure of what my knee was doing and how long it took to recover, and whether or not I should enter nationals and see if I could get onto some form to race nationals. And so it was Boxing Day or maybe a little bit afterwards, but I was in A&E for 5 hours waiting for someone to tell me what's going on with my knee. So he had to went and did another X-ray, and then he came back and I actually saw this X-ray, and he said, "Oh yeah, here you go. You know this big black line? Yeah, that's where you've cracked your kneecap. Yeah, still broken. Yes." And I was like, "Oh, I've got a race in a month to this doctor. Do you think I should enter?" And he's like, "No. If you fall off again, it goes back to the start. So don't race." So, all right, okay, well, there you go. There's another month that you're not racing. So, yeah, and yeah, I did go to national champs. I didn't race it, but that national champs was the first week I was back on the bike.
That's really interesting. And so the fact that you were there actually is quite tough as well, because you're seeing all of your friends and competitors, battle it out for those at the front, which is where you'd like to be, of course.
And then I was in an e-brace.
Yeah, but at least I think what's nice with that is that you're able to see, right, this is where I need to get to. This is exactly, you can start making those plans, saying, right, is it just kind of take it day by day, take those wins, and then go from not being able to walk, and then from walk to then get on the bike, and then from there work out sort of how you're going to be able to then move on from there, I suppose.
Yeah, and it was like that. But I got back on the bike, and then it started up again. Like, I don't know when I knew I wanted to get back on the bike. So I'm pretty sure there's a point in time when I was recovering that I was thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. And but then it slowly got through and through. I'm like, oh, I miss riding my bike now. So I just just slowly got back motivated to train. And then I looked at my calendar and I'm like, well, I'll just do it as I've had an off season, which ended up being 2 months, but I had an off season, and now I'm just getting back into it. So sort of planned it out, and then all of a sudden I've done the best base season I've ever did. Like, and the best base training I've ever done.
Sorry. Yeah, and then that set you up for a very successful road season, sort of the sort of year after that. And were you still working with Beth at that point? Had you set in big goals throughout the season, or?
No, it was I wasn't working with Beth at that point. No, I'd gone back to doing it myself. And no, I was honestly like, I want to get back to the best form I can as quickly as I can. Like, there was no target. I'd set no expectations. I was just like, I'd signed with Ribble Collective for that year.
And did that
was probably one of the
sort of like a fire behind you?
Yes, there was I'm still not really walking, but Ribble wanted to sign me for next year, so it was like, okay, like
so they absolutely saw something in you then.
Yeah,
and of course that's then paid off with, culminating in a win at Guildford, which was just basically you just kind of rode off, and that was that. Is that right?
Yeah. 4 laps in, I rode off the front and did 40 laps off the front.
That's mad. And you've got some pretty nutty power numbers. Would you like to share any of that, or is that a closely guarded secret?
No, I'll share my old ones at the time. I've recently done new ones, so they're not out today. But yeah, I think something like 420 FTP.
So that was then 2023. Is that about right?
Yeah, coming back. I don't think I hit any power PBs for ages after I got back going.
That's unsurprising.
I did some crazy amount of training. So, like, I got up to doing like 28, 30-hour back-to-back weeks at the end of base season. I basically rode myself into the ground. Physically rode myself into the ground. I went out and I was like, I'm going to do 4 hours. I got an hour in and I completely bonked and said I had to go home. And that was at the end. And then, yeah, got back onto doing efforts, and they were nowhere near what I was used to be able to do. But slowly throughout the
How far
season,
down were you? Were you maybe 100 watts
I
down?
didn't even test.
You
I
didn't even
was just
test.
like, no, I just took my old power numbers and just said, here, try to replicate them. Try to go and manage to try and get that power numbers, but I was nowhere near. And so I just got sort of kept plugging along. And then, yeah, what was the first race back was like some little crit. And I was like, oh, this is quite fun again. I started enjoying racing the bikes, and then after the crit, I think I did another 4 hours or something like that. I just sort of enjoyed riding, and with no pressure of results because I didn't have form yet. And then I got picked. Hales Owen were looking for riders, and they gave me a call to come out and race the RAS Tour of Ireland. So that was like my first big race of the season, and it was accidental because I wasn't like meant to be going until like 2 days before they messaged me saying, "Oh, can you come out to Ireland with us?" So yeah, that was the first big race, and I still didn't think I was on great form, but again, there was no pressure. It's like I'm not really meant to be here, so it was just like, yeah, go out, see what you can do, and then slowly but surely just sort of started to feel better and better. And on the last stage, I was fourth and in the right move.
So very promising then. And then sort of then was that sort of knowing people within the scene? Because obviously, you've been riding for a long time, and is that just having friends in there, or was it that they'd actually seen that you'd been quite successful, and then maybe they didn't know that you'd had a massively injury, but actually, you're still very, very strong. So was it, what I'm sort of asking, is it who you know, or is it sort of how good you are? How did that sort of call it?
It's a lot about who you know. A lot and a lot. Like, yeah.
And so sort of cultivating those relationships for somebody who's maybe sort of come in as maybe like a late youth to sort of early junior level, how would you recommend them sort of approaching maybe some of the bigger players within cycling scene? Is there something that you've learned specifically through getting those contacts?
I guess. Well, I found all my contacts from standing in pits at cyclocross races, talking to everybody, like pitting for my dad. So I was just like in the pits with all the people who know everything about cycling. So it's you just get chatting there. But I think definitely don't be afraid to go up and talk to like all the people, like, yeah, because again, it's a lot about who you know. Yeah. So the fact that I'd already talked to Bruce meant he actually went and looked for me, and then saw something in me that I didn't even see myself, and wanted to give me a chance. So, like, yeah, a lot, and about who you know. But everyone at cycle races is there because they love cycling. So you already have a common term to talk about. So like, there's nothing you should be scared to go and talk to someone, like some of the organisers or a big team manager, or just talking to the riders you're racing with, and then they might talk to you. They might talk to their coaches about you, or they might talk to their managers about you. So like, just the more people you know, like the more you get around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's being friendly as well, isn't it? Sort of being a friendly face and just being passionate as well. Everybody here loves cycling. People are cycling for a lot of different reasons, which I've sort of found. Sort of being at university, people really enjoy club rides and going to cafes. People also really enjoy going bike racing, and people also enjoy sort of the scientific experiment of developing yourself into a really, really strong rider and getting to those wins, which I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And then sort of then within that 2023 road season, which was obviously very successful for yourself because that led you to your sort of French team contract. That France trip with Phil Maddox, sort of, how did that come about? And then also, how did the sort of working out getting to a contract work there? Were they already interested, or was that just that France trip?
So originally, I had applied to the French trip, and Phil didn't want to take me. So originally, I wasn't going until someone, Rowan Baker, dropped out because he got ill. And again, a couple of days before France, they were like, "Oh, you want to come with us?" So I mean, yeah, sure, why not? So again, last minute, and hadn't really had any chance to think about it. So again, going in with no pressure, and that probably helped with, like, I'm not really meant to be here, so I'm just going to try my best. And then it turned out that we got a top 10, and I won a race, and we got a climbing jersey, a sprint jersey, a most combative award, and yeah, like second overall in the series. And so it was very productive 2 weeks. And then after that, the team was interested in me. No French DS knows any level, what the level's like in the UK. So, like, you could win Lincoln if you could win Lincoln GP, and they'd take a rider who's just gone out and done a tiny little Toots Cat race over you because they don't know how good Lincoln GP is. So, yeah, they knew me and they wanted me because of my race results then. So, yeah, it's a huge part of getting on a French team is having French results. Like, I can't suggest anything more than you sort of need to go out and say, I'm interested in coming out here and get a couple of results. And then you'll easily get onto a French team. I had 3 French teams interested in me. So, like,
you had 3 French teams.
Yeah, they were interested.
And that was just from that 2 weeks of results.
2 weeks from results, yeah.
Wow. And do you think that, so sort of on the French team side, I think having some international riders is probably very attractive as looking at a team, because of course they're at these sort of French, is it the French amateur level? But I think there's
it's called French amateur level, but from this French amateur level,
basically goes World Tour, doesn't it?
You race Conti. You can race Conti, and you have people who have previously been on World Tour teams. Like, we did a race. Our second race we did out in France was won by a guy who's been World Tour twice. So,
so it's a very high level.
It's not amateur. Let me tell you now, it's not amateur. Right? But it's called amateur because it's not like World Tour.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
well, that's useful knowledge to know. And so then you'd race for 2 weeks in Belgium. You'd come back, must have been off a massive high.
Yeah.
And you went straight into the cross season, which was pretty successful. I mean, you know, like we've been saying all the way through, you've got that win at Gravesend, which was huge. You'd race in Belgium for a bit, if that's right.
Yeah, I did Christmas period in Belgium again, and did a few other races as well. Did a few of the World Cups. Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, I think it was a good season, but I always felt that I was I didn't have a great ride at Nationals, so it ended badly. So, like, I look back in it as like, what could have been, like.
And sort of so obviously the mental side of cycling is huge, and it's clear that you've got a massive amount of resilience to be able to get over your huge knee injury where you spent over 2 months off the bike, and then to be able to then translate that into a very successful 2023 season in the road, and then 2023-24 season in the cross. Of course, like you said, you weren't so pleased with that nationals result, but sort of how do you sort of bounce back from those results that aren't quite to you how you'd expected, maybe your goals? Is there something that you do specifically? You know, is it a ride that you do? Is it you chat with somebody? How does that sort of work?
I guess sort of I didn't really have time. Like after nationals, I had no time to like look back at it. It was over and done, and I think I had a week off, and then I went out to Spain on a training camp, so I didn't have a great deal of time to look back and reflect on what could have been. It was just like, well, it's happened. Like I can't do anything about it anymore. Like I have to push myself to move on, and I had to physically had to. I didn't have there was any time. I think I had a week. I had a week off between a week off between cross and road, and that's it.
And just full gas.
Yeah, I had a huge like trying to find endurance very quickly. So I had a huge block of hours. So yeah, it was, and then it was full gas trying to sort stuff out so I could go to France. So like, yeah, the time disappeared, and sort of had to move on.
And so sort of then we're now coming up to this season, which has been obviously again a very successful season for yourself.
Yeah.
Firstly, sort of how does living in France and racing in France, and how does that team atmosphere work? Basically, what should somebody expect if they're going to be going out to France and looking to then go into that sort of team atmosphere?
The most supported team I've ever been. Yeah, there's no question of who's getting who to races and who's entering who. Like they enter you, and then they'll take you from, because the team HQ is in the town where we live. So you ride you ride 2 minutes down the road, and you get in a team van, and you get driven to races. You have bottles handed up to you with energy drinking, and there's food at the end, and you get driven home. Like it's so, compared to the UK, like the setup's huge.
Really?
Yeah, it's massive, and we are probably we're probably one of the lower level. Well, we're DN2, so the second level down, and I'd say probably there's a lot bigger teams with a lot more support than we have. Like so, and this is already better than more supported than every British team I've ever been on. So like the support out here is pretty. Well. Yeah.
And so then, sort of, are you staying? There's Dexter Lehman-Sykes and Jamie Morris, who are also on your team as British riders. I assume that Dexter also got on that team through that France trip. Are you guys staying together?
Yeah, we both live in the team apartment. As in Dexter and myself. Jamie is pretty much French. He moved out when he was 7. He speaks French. He has a French girlfriend, and he lives in Toulouse. So, like, he's French.
And does having other British riders on your team really help you kind of integrate with the team as well? It makes it a little bit easier of a change?
Yeah, it does. Like, it helps us improve our French, and yeah. So it does, with the communication, it makes it a lot easier. It does.
And then obviously, like you say, this is a very high level team within France. I've seen that there's been a lot of sort of more teamwork within these races. How is that different to UK racing?
Um, very, 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 very different. So in France, yeah, there's always six, six racing from each team. So you always have a team at a race. Like the big races, you're limited on how many you can take. But we had this one race where we had 15 riders from our team in the race.
That's nuts.
But yeah, yeah, it is crazy. Like teamwork is massive out there. Just yes, yeah. It's again. Well, in the UK, you'll get people sitting on the front of like bunches and towing them back, even though they have no teammates. Like it doesn't make any sense what they do. But in France, like if a break goes and one team has missed it, it is their job to bring it back. So they just go and sit on the front. Yeah. And if they're not strong enough, then the break goes. So like you have to be at the front the entire race, and you just look at each rider going into this move, and you start counting the teams. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I need to be on that move now. Now 6, 7, 8, and then it's gone. As soon as you get like enough riders from the team, there's no one strong enough to chase. So it's like, right, okay, it's gone. So there's a lot more. I'd say there's a lot more tactical out there. It's the team works together, and the big teams really, really do work together. Like Vonda, they'll just sit on the front. They got a team. 2 of their boys go up the front with another few, and they blockage.
Really?
Sit on the front and block it.
And so then,
first race I did out there, yeah, the people were trying to force a break to go, right? And so much so that they had like 3 or 4 from a team, 3 or 4 teams with a couple of riders each up on this road. And we had a 2-lane carriageway, and they're trying to blockage the 2-lane carriageway. Unsuccessfully, because every boy was just bowling up the outside in the gravel trying to get into this big break. And so a break never went, ever, the entire race.
And that was the first race you did?
First race I did, and I had some of the best legs I've had all season at the first race. And like a new boy, I went mental. And I didn't have backup. So every break that went, I had to be. Oh, why? I was like, I need to be in that break because no one else is in it. So I got in every break of the day. Got the com jersey, got the sprint jersey, and then got into a very strong. Well, I got into the final break of the day, which got caught 2K from a finish, and I'm just kicking myself like, why the hell did I go so hard at the start? Like, why? Like, if I'd had the gas, like, why didn't I just put it all into the last one?
So it sounds like you're racing like a UK rider going mental for the first 20 minutes, and
yeah, I was racing like a new kid on the block.
Got to show the French boys what's what. Ben Chilton's here.
Yeah. Yeah, the French guys were like, bloody hell, I've never seen anyone attack so many times.
And then obviously you then managed to get a couple of stage wins. And then so
it took longer than it took a while.
Yeah, and so
it took a while.
Sort of to say, pursuing the podium.
Yeah.
What you said, it took a while. What did you have to learn to be able to get those wins?
So I think it was first 2 or 3 races, I was just sort of a bit lost, really. I didn't understand which breaks were going to go. I didn't understand like the racing and where it was going to kick off. So I just raced it tactically badly. And then slowly but surely I was starting to work out what's going to work and how it usually goes. And so I was starting to get into the right breaks. And then I think I'm not quite sure, it might have been like 8 podiums in a row.
In
Like
a row.
every race in
Just
a row.
knowing what route to go in.
Yeah. And then I'd end up coming down to the final like the final. I got into the final break, and there's maybe like 5 of us, or like 3 of us, or 4 of us, and then just never. Yeah, I think this season I've had, I think it's 11 podiums and 3 wins, something like that, and I had like the last couple, only the last couple were wins, so like
so more to come.
Easy. It was eight podiums or something like that in consecutive races. So I had a podium streak going on, and I was never able to finish it off. There's always one boy that had a bit more gas at the end than I did. Until I took a prologue win, and that was, you could say, my first win, but it didn't feel like it because it's a prologue. Can't get your hands in the air, and then I took of that stage race, that prologue stage race, I took the overall. But again, not really a win. So officially I had 2 wins.
Yeah.
But I was still searching for my first win. And I came like 2 weeks later at my home race that finished up my home climb that I ride up every single day. Like it literally finishes outside my house in France.
Local knowledge,
yeah. That was the first one.
And so then that must have given you a lot of confidence then coming into the later end of the season. And so then now, you're looking towards the summer. You're doing the national champs this weekend.
Yeah.
And then sort of what's coming up, and sort of where do you think you're going to be going? Are you staying in the same team? Is that something which is closely under wraps yet?
So the summer, I think we're halfway through. Well, say halfway through. I think I've done 28 race days already, and we're halfway through. So I go back out, and I think I've got a 4-day stage race when I go back out. I'm sorry, I go back out for a Coupe de France, which is a French national, and then I have a week or a week and a half to get a bit of training in, and then I have a 4-day stage race, and after that it goes a bit mental in France. Like I've heard stories of within the last 2 months, someone on the team last year raced 30 race days in 2 months. So
like every other day.
Yeah. Like, so if you want to race in front, like you can race every other day. So yeah, the season gets properly big, and loads of stage races and quite a lot of elite nationals. So I'm hopefully gonna have the same legs that I have found the same legs that I did at the start of the season, because this last month's been not great on results. Like I haven't done anything, and I've been ill twice. So after the win, I ran myself into the ground, like completely gone. I was just with the podiums, and like I was just training really hard to try and get this win, and then also racing a lot to try and get this win. So like the two combined put me like in a coffin, basically.
Sounds like too much champagne for you then.
No, so I just died for the last month. I've just been on my knees, and so I had a week off the bike to try and get myself out of the hole, and I've come back for nationals. And next year, yes, it is on the wraps, and I don't think I won't be staying with the team.
That is very exciting. So one final question. What do you think is a key trait to your success?
Um, Good question. Great. I don't know. I just want to. I enjoy pushing myself to see how far I physically can go, and that's twice now that I've pushed myself too far. But after both times, like, well, after the first time, I pushed myself so hard, I got very ill. But then I went on, then I like recovered from it, and then went on to win like the National Crit Series and win at Guildford, and then have an amazing French 2 weeks. And recently, and then so now I hope that I can do the same again. Like after this, push myself too hard. I've now hopefully recovered, and I'll go out and I'll do another good end to the season. So I guess just a drive to find out how good I can be. I guess just no one. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for being the first guest on the Pursuit of the Podium podcast. Is there anything that
Thanks
you'd
for
like
having
to
me.
shout out? I mean, yeah,
All good.
great.
No
Well, good
shout
luck
out.
with the rest of your season. And yeah, thank you very much.
No,
Yeah, for
thank you
all
for
of
having me.
those, that's the end of the first episode, and you'll be hearing from us very soon. Thank you very much.